Yo, what's up? What's up? How you doing? How you doing, everybody? This is your Coach Renz, and I'm gonna give people a little bit of time to get on here. Please like and share this video. We're gonna talk about Marcion today. We're gonna take a few minutes, maybe about 30 minutes, and kind of break this guy down a little bit and get an understanding as to why he is important to free-thinking people. Uh, Marcion, and just to start this out, let me go ahead and I'm gonna have to start doing like I forgot what they call like warnings before I do these videos. We are going to this video. If you are a devout, what's up, Alexander? How you doing? If you're a devout religious person, these videos aren't for you. I make these videos for people who have walked away from traditional religion, who are deconstructing. That's the purpose of this video, is deconstructing the traditional religions so that we can reconstruct our minds into a free thinking way. And no way am I trying to convince anyone to leave their religion or that anyone to have the understanding that I have or the understanding of anybody else. It is for you to get your own understanding of self and to think freely for yourself. So before claims are made, especially if you're watching this video later, before you make your claims, before you make your statements, realize that if you are a devout Christian, devout Muslim, devout Jew, whatever, hey Rika, that these video is not for you. These videos are for free thinking people, people whose minds have opened up to the point where they say that, I know that everything that I've been taught growing up is not correct. My mind is free to think how I choose to think and not caught up into what the world says I should think. So, with that preliminary, with that warning out of the way, I know we're still going to get some hate and discontent and that sort of thing, and that's cool because I don't care. We're going to talk about Marcion. Now, Marcion, this dude, he lived around between 885 and 160 AD, right, in the common era. He was an early Christian. The first thing that I want my free thinking people to understand and know, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you already know, but I always want to arm you with more information, is the fact that this idea of a golden age of Christianity never existed. The idea that most Christians were of the same mindset in the early years, in the early first 200-300 years, never existed. This is why Rome had to murder and massacre so many people once they took over Judaism 2.0, Christianity, because the majority of people were not under the Orthodox. The Orthodox was actually very small. And it was people like Marcion who carried more of the weight of the thought process of Christianity. As a matter of fact, the Marcion doctrine that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, I'm going to give you guys just enough for you to go study it. They actually, his version of Christianity lasted well into the 10th century. You would still find churches dedicated to him into the 10th century, which is the 900s. So this is well past the Council of Nicaea. This is past Theodosius making the Orthodox version of Christianity the legal and only religion of Rome. So this way of thinking was there for a long time. It goes kind of in hand with the thought process of the Gnostics, but not true Gnostic thinking. But Marcion would be more akin to the Gnostic thinking than the Orthodox Christian thinking. So Marcion, he wasn't a weak dude. He knew his stuff. He studied. Most of these what they call early church fathers or early Christians, these people who studied theology, they knew the information that they had at hand. So, but he's very important because he's important in the fact of some of the free thinking things that he talked about. You hear some of this today. You're going to hear some things that's going to sound familiar to you of what you've heard some pseudo-Christian people say, what you've heard some people outside of Christianity say. A lot of his teachings are still very much alive. I was going to do this video on 2 people, but I realized that I only got about like an hour. So I can only do 1 person because the other person, who is Origen, he will take a long time as well. And only because Origen said some things that slipped through the cracks when you study him to make you realize that he wasn't as much as what you think. Um, so we're going to, you know, Joe, we're going to break down some of the ideas of Marcion. So I want you guys definitely go study this guy on your own and go deeper than just what you will find on like Wikipedia or on a Catholic website. Definitely go and study this guy. Some of and it's not so much for you to believe what he taught, but just to get that deeper understanding of how society chooses what people think. Uh, this is why I want to do Marcion plus Origen, because I'm gonna go ahead and give you one little tidbit from Origen that he said. Origen said that if you wanted to grow the church, he was talking to the other bishops, and he was saying that basically, and I'm paraphrasing, if you want to grow the Christian movement, grow the Christian church, that we have to tell these allegorical stories, these allegorical studies, and let them believe that they are literal, that they are the literal interpretation of the story. If they believe that it's literal, it's easier for them to do it because the masses can't go into deep thinking. If you give them the deep thought, they won't follow. So give them the story, make them think it's literal, and let them follow. But for those who do learn and come to understandings, we will then graduate them up and teach them that it is all allegory and the allegorical aspects of it. That's a teaching of Origen, who also has some teachings that would, if he was alive today saying what he was saying, he's called an early church father. He's basically worshipped by the Catholic Church today. But he's one of the guys that they would say, we got receipts. But this, some of his teachings, his teaching that everybody had a pre-existing soul before the material creation of the earth, and how demons and angels and Jesus and humans and all these kind of things came about, would fly in the face of today's traditional teaching. So it's like they stand on his shoulders, knowing it's rocky, but still stand there and hope you don't find out. But that's why we study. That's why we look deeper. So as we look deeper into Marcion, and I got a little notes on the pad, the apple that froze on me the day before. You know, like I said, Marcion, he was considered a heretic. He was kicked out. The early church fathers, they didn't like him. The Orthodox didn't, because he was more apt to be kind of like a Gnostic, but not a full Gnostic. Most of his writings were never saved, right? Most of the information we have about him basically come from the fact that people like Tertullian wrote about him, wrote how the heresy wrote a book. I think it's called The Heresy of Marcion, or Marcionism. I believe that's what it's called in English. But he, is those kinds of things. But he led this church, and when he was with the presbyters, when he stood up in front of the presbyters and started doing his teachings, they banned him, they exiled him, they excommunicated him. But he went out and did his own study. And now the biggest thing about Marcion that I want you guys to take away from today is that Marcion taught during a time frame where there was when anti-Semitism was big. It was around the time frame that you had a second Jewish revolt around 130, 120, 132, 132 to 135. So there was a lot of anti-Semitism within the Roman Empire at the time frame, right? So in his teachings, he taught based on the Bible, the Christian writings, and it wasn't the Bible back then because it wasn't canonized, but the more popular Christian writings. He taught that there are two gods, that there is an evil God, the one that you've heard this term before, who created the demiurge. There was an evil God, and then there is the good, nice God, and that the God of the Old Testament is the evil God, whereas the God of the New Testament is the good, loving God. And so he rejected the idea of the Old Testament and the New Testament being a book of shared gods, and that should be read and thought of as the same God. That the God of Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, God of Moses and Noah, is not the God of Jesus. right? And we'll go through a few of those differences of why he was teaching this. And this is something that you can look at yourself as well. So I'm not going to give you all the scriptures and all that kind of stuff, but I'll give you part of it. But the first reason, one of the first things he says that about how Yahweh cannot be the God is a simple one. He says that this God incorporated himself in a human form, walked in a body, wasn't a spirit, because when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, this dude is walking through the garden in the cool of the day, and he's like, Adam, where are you? Adam, where are you? So he's saying that a omnipresent God would not have asked the question of Adam, where are you? He would have known where Adam was. Adam wouldn't have been able to hide in a bush and say, here I am. And the fact that he's walking around looking for Adam indicated to Marcion that this is not the God of the creation, the God of the universe, but a God who created this evil planet. And since this God created this evil planet, everything it created is evil. So, he's walking around in a fleshy form. So the fact that he didn't know everything, know where Adam was one of the first things that kind of like sparked Marcion to say, there's something strange going on. There's something happening here. Y'all know I can't sing, but every now and then it hit me. So that's who Marcion starts out with, that kind of a thought process that this God is walking around. But he also looks at who this God is, this God who created the demiurge of the Old Testament, this deity of the Jews, and how he contradicts himself within his own writings at times. One of the contradictions that he has in his own writings is that he tells the Jewish people, that you are to not make any graven images of anything on heaven and earth, right? No graven images. But then when Moses is out in the wilderness and people are being bitten by serpents, he tells Moses to make a graven image of a golden serpent on a pole, and whoever looks upon it, that person, that they'll be healed and they won't be bitten by the snakes. So he tells them not to make a graven image, but then tells them to make the graven image. So he says that he contradicts himself in points like that, in points of saying that, well, you're supposed to rest on the seventh day, but yet when they're going, the story of them going around the walls of Jericho, and he tells them on the seventh day, on the Sabbath, to go around it and walk around carrying the ark 7 times. Now, of course, a person may excuse that and say, well, they were given this directive to do it, so that's the one time. But he would still be violating his own thing of not working on the 7th day, taking too many steps, doing too much physical activity. That's working. You're working on the 7th day. So it is contradictions within himself, right, that he says cannot be of a good, loving God. But then the main parts of his contradictions is when he compares the God that Jesus speaks of compared to the God of the Old Testament. So the forgiving God, the loving God, not the jealous and the angry God. And this was written in his book he produced called the Antithesis. I'm probably saying that wrong. Antithesis. I can't pronounce these words all the time. But to get into some of the understanding of what he was talking about. Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, if I'm saying the right one, is pissed off because these children are calling him Baldy. They're being children. They're picking on him. They're saying, you're bald, you're bald, you're bald. Hey, Baldy, you need some hair growth tonic or whatever. And he summons bears to rip these children apart, to devour the children, to kill children for calling the prophet bald. Compared that to Jesus' teaching of, let all the little children come to me. I suffer everyone to come to me as little children, right? Accepting and understanding the mind of a child. He compares that. He looks at how throughout the Old Testament, it tells that Joshua was told to kill everyone when it was conquering people, kill everyone, kill all the men, kill all the animals, kill all the women who've known a man, kill all the small boy children, but keep the young girls who haven't known a man as your wife, but kill everybody else. Whereas Jesus is saying, love your enemies. Love your enemies. But the warlike God of the Jewish demiurge cannot be the same. This is why you have the part where Jesus tells the Pharisees and Sadducees that you you worship your father is the devil, your father is evil, something like you worship a father of lies, all these kind of things. Where Jesus is separating who his God is compared to who their God is. So Marcion takes on this fight, this idea that it must be two different gods, the evil one and the one that Jesus came, to came in the name of, according to him. But even Jesus coming in the name of, we'll get to that a little bit later, that Jesus wasn't like the son of God. He was an adopted son of God. God saw how good he was and adopted him as his son. So he does away with the whole lineage of Jesus being born from a Jewish family and the whole birth. Like, he gutted Luke. He took everything that was Jewish out of the book of Luke, and because he created his first canon. He's one of the first people to create a canon. And he gutted the whole lineage of Jesus coming from the line of David and all that sort of thing out of Luke, because he got rid of all the Jewish part and said that he was not of that lineage, and that he was just a really good dude who God found favor in and made him an adopted son. But he also talked about other aspects of the comparison. Now, I want you guys to think about some of the comparisons between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and why he says that they should not and should never be read together as something of the same God. So you guys, we know the bears, all right? We got the killing everybody, okay? In the Old Testament, you're not supposed to divorce. I mean, you were in the Old Testament, Moses gave writings of divorce, right? But in the New Testament, Jesus said that whatever God has put together, let no man tear asunder, that you're not supposed to get divorced, according to Jesus, right? So there's a conflict here, a difference in the opinion. The Old Testament God, he allows for you to, he suffers you, he bargains with you. He's standing there bargaining with with Abraham. He's killing a whole village. I mean, think about it. Sodom and Gomorrah, the whole story, Sodom and Gomorrah. As it goes, Abraham is like, look, there are like 50 people in there, that's good. And I think they get down to 30 and then they get down to 10. But he's like, nah, ain't nobody in there good. So there were no little small 3-year-olds. There weren't 10 3-year-olds, 10 1-year-olds, 10 newborns. They weren't, 50, good people who were just minding their own business and trying to make a living for themselves. No, they're all evil. Just kill them all. Kill the whole village. Burn them all down. Hellfire and brimstone. Kill everybody. Where's the love? Where's the forgiveness? Where's the understanding? The God that Jesus was talking about, according to Marcion, would not have destroyed an entire town, killed all the babies, killed all the people who were just minding their own business, doing their own thing, just trying to live their life. Wouldn't have killed all these people. But according to the Old Testament dude, he kills everybody. He destroys everybody. Everybody got to die. It's a whole lot of bloodletting going on. I think somebody did a total, and without counting the flood, I think it's something like 2.6 million people is estimated to have been murdered by the God of the Jews, according to Marcion, during the Old Testament, during the whole Tanakh. So Marcion separates this. And of course, he's demonized for doing it. He's demonized for pointing out these inconsistencies. He's demonized for pointing out how these people were believing in that the same God of the Old Testament and the New Testament are the same, when he's saying that no one's evil and the other one is good, and that there should be a separation between the two, right? How you doing, Marcus? From Texas. So what does that mean? Or what does a person who thinks for themselves, what do we think about those kinds of things? What do we think about when we see that the interpretations of prominent people during the early days, you think about it, you're supposed to be closer to the time frame of all this stuff happening, And there's such a huge disagreement in it. What are the politics surrounding it? A lot of the anti-Jewish thought process is going on because the Jews had just did a war in 132, and I think they maintained the Judea for like 3 years. So Rome was being threatened by the Roman government. The Roman stability is being threatened, and it is a revolt because of religion. So there's a lot of anti-Jewish sentiment in his writings. But there's also a lot of free thinking in that. Because even though his motivation may have been the anti-Jewish sentiment, what he discovered is valid. It's incredibly valid. Because when we compare some of these writings of the Old Testament to the New Testament, how can they be the same? Now we know that Christianity is Judaism 2.0. We know that Islam is Judaism 3.0, right? So we know they're coming from the same lineage. When they're coming from the same lineage, but we see these differences. We see how they're literally talking about two people like this is two sides of a coin. One that is just like bloodlusting, and the other who is supposed to be all forgiving and loving. But they're so different. So different in their teachings. So different in how they move. Now, some people will say that, well, God changed because Jesus came, right? Jesus came and changed everything. Well, this is a teaching from Origen that I found interesting. Because when Origen was teaching, he was saying that the reason Jesus came and is so different is because of all the souls that were created at the beginning, before the material universe was created. Jesus was the one soul that remained closest to God. You see, what he was saying was that the souls after this hellfire ended, divine fire ended, that the souls that was far away from God, who had forgotten and wasn't loving God anymore, they became demons. The ones who were kind of lukewarm, they became us, our corporal bodies. The ones who were still, in there for God, but not all the way, but they're still in there, they became your angels. But then this one soul was still really close to God. And then that one soul merged with the Logos, and through that merger became born through a virgin and was Jesus. And because that one came, it knew God better. And that was why his teachings are different, because it truly knew God better. Whereas the God before was like an angry parent trying to figure out why my children are acting the way they're acting. That was a teaching of Origen. That kind of works with Marcion a little bit. Even though they had, Origen was more of an orthodox, but he had a lot of his teachings went against the orthodoxy. That's why I was going to do this video and talk about both of them, but Origen would take way too long because he wrote a lot of stuff, right? But that aspect of it shows like kind of Marcion was teaching very early. Let me get the year of Origen's teachings when Origen came through the cut. If you guys got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And I went digital, y'all. I got all my notes on digital. So Origen was from 184 to 253. Marcion was from 85 to Marcion was 85 to 160. Now, understand, like I said, Marcion's church, his teachings lasted to the 10th century, so to the 900s. And it was one of the biggest movements in Christianity of that time frame. During those early years, because Marcion had a lot of money. Like, he had, this guy was donating big dollar, to the Church of Rome and these places. So he was a very prominent person and very studious. So Origen would have known of him, would have read his writings, would have had information about him. And it would have affected him because they both spent a lot of time in Alexandria, Egypt. And Origen was from Alexandria. He spent most of his life in Alexandria. Whereas also you got a lot of great information, a great exchange of information going on in Alexandria. So Origen would have known of Marcion and the Marcion church. He would have seen it. He would have seen people who participated in that doctrine. So for him to have some similarities would have been, it's not odd. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, Origen, there's some crazy things about him, like self-mutilation, like because then Matthew said there'll be those who make themselves into a eunuch. Origen either made himself into a eunuch, like cut his own balls off, or he had paid a physician to do it. But either way, it is said that he made himself into a eunuch so he can be closer to God. Um, there's some strange thought processes on some of these people, to say the least. Not cutting my balls off for nobody. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, Marcion, he's described as being a Gnostic, but not fully Gnostic in his teachings, because he did believe that every last one, everybody at the birth of their creation, their soul had a divine spark from God that was part of who you are. So he had that you make heaven on earth. You have self-determination to create heaven and hell on earth. You have self-determination of what happens to your spirit once you leave here. So, and that through knowledge, you gain your admittance into the higher planes of existence. This is a similar thing that Origen taught. Origen taught this a similar teaching, like I said earlier, that for the base, for the layman, they just need to know the literal. But for those who study and show themselves approved, I like using those little terms, show themselves approved, that they are taught the deeper mysteries, right? And Origen was teaching the deeper mysteries according to his beliefs. So they both had this similar thing of self-determination, that you decide how your life goes on earth and how it goes the next time around or wherever you go. According to Origen, you depend upon your place in society now is dependent upon how, so like the poles, how far away from God were you when your body went from the heavenly realm into the corporal body. So like I said earlier, demons are way over here. Humans are right here. Angels are right here, and Jesus is right there next to him, right? The soul of Jesus, that one soul. But in general, demons, humans, angels. And then there's space in between. Anybody can be along the pole in any way to the right or to the left. So depending upon where you were to the right, to the left of human or in the middle, that determined the birth. So if you was born into hellish lifestyle, you were closer to demons. If you was born into a more pleasant lifestyle, you were closer to angels. You born poor, demons. Born rich, angels. If you was born into abuse, demons. If you was born into a loving family, angels. And and they're mixtures. You can be poor, a poor family, but born into a loving family, and you're still closer to angels or somewhere right here around human. So there was all these kind of lines that you can be in, and based on that, you was born into your life, and then it is for you at that point to determine, through incorporating the soul teachings of the Bible, the allegorical teachings, it was up to you to determine the allegorical teaching and make that part of your soul teachings, not your flesh teachings, and that determined how you ascended afterwards to get you to wherever you're supposed to go. That was what Origen was teaching, and it's similar to kind of have a Gnostic feel to it, but of course he was still Orthodox, because Origen is a big teacher of one of the big proponents who started the teachings of the Trinity. So mind you, before Origen, you didn't have this big teaching of the Trinity. Most people didn't teach a Trinitarian doctrine, where people like Marcion definitely didn't teach a Trinitarian doctrine, because he taught that Jesus was the adopted son of God, that his body, that when the dove came down and all that, he then became the adopted son of God, and that all of us have that spark inside of us. So yeah, that's a basic kind of understanding of Marcion. A little bit of Origen, and it's Origen if you want to look up Origen. If you just look, you put an I in, you're going to get like the origin, the beginnings of this and the beginnings of that. But Origen of Alexandria and Marcion, is he from? So I can say this name wrong. Origen of Sinope. Sinope? Something. But look up these guys. Understand their teachings. Like I said, you're going to find most of Origen's teachings in books written by Tertullian because his stuff wasn't kept. It wasn't preserved. So Tertullian's writings about him is where you're going to find most of the stuff about Marcion because they hated this dude. This dude created like a huge like following. Even Manny. Okay, I'm gonna look that one up. Yeah, like I was looking up something else, and I've known of Marcion for a long time ago when I studied him, but I couldn't really remember a lot about him. And then I was looking up I was looking up the demiurge actually. I was saw something about the demiurge, and I was like, oh man, let me look up that. And then it took me to Marcion. As I was, you have to, if you really want to know these things, you have to go back and study them over and over again to really get them in your mind. And then once you get enough of it in your mind, you can start connecting dots. And that's one of the things I respect about Marcion. He started connecting dots, even though he still, did the whole Jesus thing, but he didn't do like a salvation Jesus thing so much. It was more about your inner knowledge of self, that you have to gain that inner knowledge. And as long as you gain that inner knowledge, you will connect with the Creator. And then your salvation, so to speak, will be at hand. But you can gain that salvation here on earth and not have to wait for the hereafter in order to have it. And so that's one of the reasons why I do look at the teachings of Marcion. Of course, anybody's teachings, I'm not like looking at it like, oh, they must be great. We all must learn from ourselves. But one of the things about Marcion is that through his teachings, he grew a large following of people who thought for themselves. So for all my people in this conscious community that we like to call it, it's kind of like what this whole section of time for the Black conscious community especially reminds me of the history of the early Christian church and how splintered it was, how people thought and taught so many different things and there was no cohesion in it. And when I look at people, and this is where Origen is right, I recognize that, and this is going to sound so wrong in a certain way, that if I truly wanted to grow a church, like some people, they like to come on here and tell me that I'm just doing this for views, I'm just doing this to try to grow an audience and that sort of thing. I mean, of course, there's a part of me that wants to grow an audience because I love teaching people. But if I truly wanted to build something massive, I would follow the teachings of Origen, where he said that you give them the basics. You just teach the basic, and you wait for those who have a higher understanding to teach the deeper knowledge. I told you how Pythagoras had to wait 20 years before he was accepted into the mystery schools of Egypt. That Plato and Socrates had to wait 20, 30 years to get into the mystery schools of Egypt. That even the schools of Akhenaten, you had to show yourself of a higher understanding before you can get into those mystery schools. But all mystery schools have been that way. Even Pythagoras, when he started his schools in Croton, you had to go through this process that took you 10, I think you had 5 years of just being in silence. Just being in silence, just for 5 years. So everybody wasn't admitted into the mysteries. So if I was trying to build a massive following, I would stop teaching the deeper mysteries. I wouldn't be breaking down Marcion and Origen. I wouldn't be breaking down some of the deeper understandings. We wouldn't be sitting up here. We would stay basic. We would stay very basic and build, right? And it's not that that's a bad thing in a sense, because sometimes you can't give everybody the whole thing. You can't fix what holiday, what American holiday we just passed? Was Thanksgiving? Yeah. Yeah, Thanksgiving just passed. So I'm gonna use Thanksgiving. You know, kill the Indigenous People Day. So in Kill the Indigenous People Day, you think about the feasting that goes on. You can't set a baby with the same plate that you give an adult. It doesn't work. Baby can't handle that. Too much food, too much solid food, baby can't eat it. You got to get a baby the baby food. Little, give him some mashed potatoes, you know, that kind of thing. So, hey, how you doing, Lydia? Soul Audio, how you doing? So, when you give, in order to build, Origen is right in the effect of you got to have something for the base to get an understanding of. You got to have something for the base to learn and grow from. But in today's world, we can do that. But there's so much information available. So we still got to give more, which is why, and I'm asking you guys' opinion. What do we want to build? What do we want to do? Now, for me personally, what I want to do is see people put more money in their pocket, be able to create heaven on earth by, you know, having a roof over their head, being in the warm weather, you know, being able to be warm, be able to have food, to be able to explore their dreams, explore the world, do things that they want to do, live the life that they choose to live. But in order to do that, there are some things that we have to do. We have to learn about money. Now, this is an experiment. This video in itself is an experiment because I've noticed if I start talking about money and credit and building wealth, less people watch. If I start talking about building a relationship and, you know, with a woman or a man, with your children, less people watch, less people pay attention. But if I get on here and all I talked about was the contradictions within the Bible, the contradictions within the Torah, the contradictions within Islam, within the Quran, if I talked about the inhumane things that goes on in all these books, I mean, think about it. Marcion knew and understood the inhumane things of the demiurge God, right, that he proposed. You know, the killing of hey, if the woman is raped, as long as the dude paid 50 pieces of silver, he has to marry the girl. And then, you know, the girl has to provide more children for him. She's just property. You know, he recognized how evil this God is, right? So he recognized that. He saw that. I can make videos about that all day long, and they will get, from what my opinion, for me, massive views. You know, tons of views. Did that video about the Hebrew Israelites, the first one, got a ton of views, right? For me, for my level. But what am I really doing? Now, Joe, I need to use my other hand. I forgot the camera's over that side. I want to see people free of superstitions, fear, who are able to think for themselves. Right. But that's what my point. When you make people, the average person, when they have to do the work, they won't do it. They like for you to start telling them that all they got to do is pray. All they got to do is sit and wait for pie in the sky. Here come, you know, that one day you're going to have your salvation. One day you're going to be saved. You know, one day something cataclysmic is going to happen to all the people who harmed you, done you wrong, treated your people, your kind incorrectly, who put you into slavery, who, you know, did all these things. But that don't work. That does not work. We have to begin to build where we can give people the opportunity and the ability to be free, to think, but they also have to be willing to do the work. Why people say Jesus paid it all? Only because I know you're joking. Oh, you got little faces. But we have to get into a mindset. How do we get people to do the work? How do I get you to make sure you get your credit right? How do I make sure I get you to treat your spouse right? How do I get men into the understanding that women are of equal value? How do we change this patriarchal society? so that all the abuse that goes on cease and desist. How do we get people to recognize that regardless of if I believe that there's a purple spaghetti monster on Saturn, and if you believe that the flower that's growing in your backyard is God, but we still work together to create a better life in this current existence, regardless of that belief. How do we do that? That's what my goal is. Let's see. You say, just finished reading Saving Truth from Abu Murray, an ex-Muslim, now Christian. He believes that Christianity is the truth, and many people refuse to face the fact. Who truly knows the truth? No one knows the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you, Yahweh, Allah, karma, whoever you want to call it. Nobody knows the truth. Like, we have estimations, we have guesses. As science develops, we learn more, right? And with our knowledge, which is the Gnostic thinking, the more you know, the closer you are to the Creator, or creation, or whatever you want to call it. We know that you are energy. We know your consciousness is not held in your body as far as like your consciousness is in your brain, your consciousness is in your heart, or in any form. It dwells in this meat suit somehow it's encased in this. And this is what Origen was trying to say, that your soul was created, but then it got encased in the flesh. Marcion was speaking something very similar, that your soul is a created thing and it lives in flesh. We're going to do a breakdown of the Gospel of Thomas soon, and it talks about your body came to, how woeful it is that something as special, as wonderful as the Spirit come to dwell in the flesh. And maybe that's where Origen got that thinking, because the Gnostic and the Coptic Christians who taught the Gospel of Thomas were in Egypt, and he was in Egypt. So maybe he got that from the Gospel of Thomas, where it says they came to dwell. And he's like, if it came to dwell, it must have been created beforehand. So he took an estimated guess to create that doctrine. So I lost my train of thought. So we do that. And so this is what I propose. As you guys know, I'm doing this whole tour, going to city to city to city to city. And we're going to talk about relationships, we're going to talk about finances, and we're going to talk about manifesting through the laws of attraction, what the laws that we know, the universal laws we know, and how the universe works as far as what we know. Because it is through knowledge that we get there, through knowledge. I am going to go with the Gnostic idea that knowledge unravels the mysteries, that what we call magic is science unknown, right? So we want to unravel the mysteries. In unraveling the mysteries, we also have to teach people how to fish, so to speak. People, yes, are waiting on Jesus, and they believe he paid it all. And all they got to do is suffer through this existence, and they get this glory. While the people that they call their enemy, the people that they call who is kingdom, is living that way, is living like that, living in heaven. So this tour is about building the temple of knowledge, the temple of, what did I call it? Oh my gosh, I forgot the name. That's because somebody asked a question and threw me off. Are those meditation beads? Yes, they are. These are meditation beads. If you don't know how these work, there's like, you see this? So you got big beads and then you'll have a small bead. There's 108. It's so that you can count. If you're meditating, you just count. And you just move it along as you breathe. You're just counting breaths. But you don't have to worry about the count, and you can focus on what you're doing. You get to a small one, you did 27. All right. So yeah, I wear the meditation beads on my wrists instead of on my neck, because I wear my ankle on my neck. This temple of knowledge, temple of wisdom, whatever I call it, I have to look it up now. I got too many things going on. But this temple of knowledge, we're gonna build this. I told you guys in a subsequent video that I'm gonna start funding this on my own, as well as by doing these tours. We're gonna fund this. Another reason I'm doing these tours is so that I can get certain help to help me do it, because I can't do this by myself. The temple of wisdom, temple of knowledge, whatever I called it, it could change. We have to give people, first we have to give them what the churches won't. We have to give them their money back. We have to give them their money back. And we have to teach them how to build wealth. What made FDR such a popular president is that he talked about a car in every driveway, a chicken in every pot, a roof over everyone's head. He gave the people the basic need things that they wanted, which is a place to live, a car to drive, and food in their house. In today's world, we have to give people that same thing, that same message, just reconstructed. We have to teach them how to fish, how to build your credit. Cash is king, but credit starts conversation. We can talk all day about cash, but if you want to build something, you got to have credit. So we're going to have to teach people how to build their credit and work with them. We're going to teach them how to manage their money, not take their money as the churches do today, as the mosques and synagogues and every other organization does today, but teach them how to make their money. And whether or not they utilize the Western systems or some other system, it doesn't really matter. It's about how much can you make and how much can you keep. If you're in the gig economy, I told you guys I'm gonna do a live probably tomorrow on the gig economies. Having the right understanding of how to use those in order to develop is important. If you're using the gig economy to live your life, that's one thing. But if you're using it to say, I got some things I need to pay off so that I can have more money to invest, that's different. That's different. Now you're using it for the right purpose. So that's what we need to understand so that we can build people. It's building people to exist in this world in a heavenly format. Teaching them how to meditate, teaching them how to center themselves, teaching them how to find and build their relationships. I can talk Jesus, God, Allah, Yoda all day. But when you go home, are you going home to a peaceful environment? That's what you want. You want to go home to a peaceful environment. You want to go and have fun. You want to enjoy your family, enjoy your friends. That's what people want. They may not say it, but that's what they want. And for those who just flock to the church and they just can't get out of it, and they're suffering, because they don't think there's any way out. And that's what we have to show them, that there's a way out. There's a way out, and it's all in your hand. You have the ability to do it. So I hope you guys can join me in that. Join me in building that. One easy way is to come to the sessions. Come to the sessions. And let me know something. Before I really promote these sessions, this city tour, let me know what issues you may have. I need everybody who's listening to this to go to coachrenz.com. From Italy. How you doing? I was just talking about Italy earlier today. I want everybody to go to coachrenz.com/the-store. Right? I want you to go there. I want you to look at the alchemy tour of life. Tell me what you think. Give me your constructive criticism on it. If it's all good, let me know. If there's some things that could be tweaked about it, let me know. When you walk out of there, you're going to have the Financial Alchemy DIY guide. You're going to get the book, The Kabbalion. You're going to get the book that's almost finished. I'm almost finished writing. How to Find Your Divine Soulmate. And I'm going to give you the digital book of How to Escape Mental Welfare. You're going to walk out of there with those those four things. So let me know, what do you think about it? What do you think about the cities that I'm looking at going to? Or would it be better if it was all digital, if it was all like online and you just followed it online? We went through the sessions online. Let me know. We can do a 3-day seminar online. I kind of like traveling though, but it could be done. So I want everybody to go to the website, look at the program. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. The alchemy tour of life. Because I respect constructive criticism. If you're just on here just to badmouth, I'll ignore you. But let me know. But let me know if you're also interested in building. Right? In Charlotte. I'm doing Atlanta. Didn't put Charlotte on there. But I'm doing Atlanta and Miami and New York and New Orleans. So maybe Charlotte. Yep, I put Dallas on there. Dallas is on there in April, I think. Yeah, it goes Atlanta, Miami, and then Dallas. So Dallas should be April because it's February, March, April. Yeah. Houston is like October, somewhere around like October, November time frame. I can't. I own a business here in Atlanta, so I can't. I'm not in. I can leave, but I can't be going every weekend. I need to be here until my manager really, really learns how to do things. Then I'll be able to go more. But yeah, those cities are on there, and I got people in each one of those cities who are checking out different hotels and things like that to see where we can have these conferences. But I really want to build. I want to build people, and the best way to do it, as we see humans are, is we have to create a place for them to go. The temple of learning. That's what I call it, the temple of learning. We have to create a place for them to go, a place for them that they know that they can come here and they're going to learn how to become wealthier. They're going to learn how to handle their money. They're going to learn how to develop better relationships and do the work to do so. They're going to learn how to think for themselves, learn how to manifest things. Sure. Will we teach alchemy? Yeah. Will we teach hermetics? Sure. Will we have the Confessions of Mayat up and teach about that and teach about ancient cultures? Yeah, but we're going to teach about all the ancient cultures, not just one. We're not just going to teach about, everything's about Egypt, everything's about West Africa, everything's about, the Mesopotamia. Nope, we're going to teach it all. We're going to teach what the Hindus taught. We're going to teach what the native in America, the Hopi Indians and the Aztecs, the Mayans. We're going to have classes on all that. It's the temple of learning. Learn, then think for yourself. Temple of learning, right? And then provide, and then not only are we are looking to do this, but also buy land, buy schools, buy plazas. Not only just teach people how to build a business, but build business. That's why it won't be a 501c3 thing. It's going to be, yes, Chicago's on the list too. I think Chicago's like, because I refuse to be anywhere in the cold. So Chicago is like May or June, something like that. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere in the cold. I don't do cold. Do you think Jesus should have turned base metals into gold to help the poor instead of water into wine? You know what? Iron, charioteer, that is, I've never thought about that. I have never considered that. Because I understand that according to the story, the allegory, he's at a wedding and they were out of wine. So he made some wine, right? Good time Jesus. But you make a very valid point. He's at a wedding. Now, of course, we know the turning water into wine is something that Dionysus did. It's also something that Horus did, or Hero. It is also, I think Atticus did it as well. So it's not a new story. It's an old story. Could have been developed from the Sumerian idea of watching the Anunnaki who went in Harsag, planted grapes and made wine out of it. Could have been from them. Could have been the origin of that idea. I don't know. But I do know that other cultures have that story. But when you think about it, if you think about the Jesus character when it comes to the poor, he didn't do some smart things. There's a lot of smart things he did not do. There's a lot of dumb things he did. Turning the water into wine, you're absolutely right. You got all these poor people. Turn some iron into gold. He had Peter and them open the mouth of a fish and felt all these coins because they need to pay their taxes. Not the other people, not helping them, but pay their taxes. So it could have been a better thing to do. Or how about when he said uproot that fig tree because it was not producing fruit? Even though he said it was out of season. Who would expect it to produce fruit out of season? Wouldn't it have been better? If I was there and I was skeptical about Jesus, and I was like, I don't know, JC, I ain't really digging you like that. You say you the son of God, but we got Barabbas. We had that other Jesus who flipped tables. We had that other Jesus, who governor your, I stole to you, that he held captive and just said he was crazy. We had some other Jesus came into the temple and say some stuff. But if I was standing there and that dude would be like, you know what, that fig tree is out of season, but I'm hungry and I want some figs. Instead of saying pull it up by its root, said watch this. Boom. And the fig tree would have came up and had some figs on it. I'd be like, yeah, bet. You Jesus. You man. The fig tree was an allegory for the fall of Jerusalem. The fig tree is an allegory for the fall of Jerusalem. Or if you read the annals of Titus, you'll see that when Titus was conquering Jerusalem, he ordered that all the fig trees around Jerusalem be pulled up from their roots so that the people was so he can starve the people out during his siege around 69 to 70 AD. So it is also something that Josephus had recorded as to something that Titus did in Jerusalem was to rip up all the fig trees. So it could be an allegory in today's thinking, but it's also a historical event that was done by Titus in 70 AD as he conquered, well, 69, 70 AD as he laid siege to Jerusalem as well. I lean more to the idea of the fig tree being something that was later constructed from the writings of Josephus about Titus pulling up all the fig trees around Jerusalem to starve the people out. Because it is Titus who brought upon Jerusalem its fall. And there are a lot of other things that happened during that time frame where Titus built a tower to watch, to look and see what was going on in Jerusalem. And he built the tower. And, Jesus almost some find a watchtower. Titus came in with fanfare. Jesus came in with fanfare. Titus started in Galilee. Jesus started in Galilee. Titus, there was 3 dudes up on the cross. Josephus said, "Can I take them down?" He took all 3 of them down. 2 of them died. 1 of them was resuscitated. Those writings of Josephus, according to following Titus' campaign, are very, very similar. Titus that tore down the temple and didn't leave 1 stone unturned. So very similar. So if you go to Josephus' writings and see what he wrote about Titus and his conquest of Jerusalem, you'll see a lot of similarity to the gospel book writings. Are you a fan of Joseph Atwell? No, I don't know who Joseph Atwell is. I have to look him up to see who he is. Do Christians worship Titus Flavius, a Roman warrior? So to say they worship Titus Flavius, they worship elements of Titus Flavius. They also worship elements of the 4 different Jesuses that Josephus talked about. They also are worshiping the stories that were taken from the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Hindu, and other sources, other source material that was around during those time frames that have all over the centuries were combined together to formulate the current teachings. And of course, all of it has a base. That's why I call Christianity Judaism 2.0. They have this basis in Judaism, which comes from the Egyptians, Canaanite, and Babylonians and Sumerian teachings, which, they're a combination of those. Just like, a lot of the similarities of Yahweh or El are similar to Baal, Baal, B-A-A-L, Baal. So you have those similarities. And like anything, I was planning on doing a video later about how Christianity is adopting the New Age thought. I did a video like 4 years ago where I was telling ministers that if you don't change your teachings, you're going to lose your flock. But 4 years ago, ministers weren't really talking about energy and vibration and that sort of thing. But now you go into a church, they talking energy and vibration. I'm seeing Christian people talking about chakras and things like that, and prana and karma. They weren't talking about this 10 years ago. But now they are, because they know that it is the way the society is moving. So it's very adaptive. Religion have always been adaptive to the culture, which is why the Christian movement is so Roman. It is so Roman in today's world. The church is set up just like a Roman court. And the courthouses and the churches are set up exactly the same, which is set up like a Roman church. A Roman courthouse itself. Never mind the question you asked. He wrote Caesar Messiah. It is a book that says that Flavius invented Christianity. Oh, well, yeah. If he talked about that, then yes, I did a video about Josephus. I did a video about the beginnings of Judaism and Christianity and Islam. And I did a video about Flavius, the Flavians, especially, God, I forget the first Flavian's guy name. Starts with a V. Vespasian. No, is it Vespasian? Yeah, I think it's Vespasian. I think that's Titus' daddy name. But yeah, it's yeah, the Flavians were the beginners of creating this docile 2.0 version of Christianity. And they had a habit of backdating. So everything that was happening in 70 AD, they backdated to during the times of the Caesars. So because they hated the Flavians, hated the Caesars, and wanted to overcome the Caesars, so they had to put all that stuff back into the time that of previous Caesars, of the Caesar clan, the Judeo-Claudians. Um, and so they began this creation of a more, they weren't trying to create what's called Christianity, but they were just trying to create a docile version of Judaism. And one that already said that the Messiah is here, and that Messiah was Vespasian, which made Titus his son. So, but they began it. And since the Herods were Hellenistic Jews, and the Alexander, Philo of Alexander, were also Hellenistic Jews. But they were wealthy tax collectors, and they were Romanized. So they incorporated those guys who knew and Josephus, being the traitor that he was to the Jewish people, they incorporated those Jewish teachings into the Roman doctrine to make Vespasian into a deity, because the imperial religion has to deify the emperor. And when they did that, they used the Jewish teachings of a coming Messiah who would come out of Egypt and come out of Jerusalem, conquer and rule the world. They used that to help deify Vespasian, which then that helped also to deify Titus, and so on and so forth. This is even why you get to Constantine. He's deified in the image of Apollo and Mithra. All right. At point they decided to compile the Bible. That skipped up real quick. Where did it go? At point they decided to compile the Bible. I get many stories about it. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that one. Did Islam get the embryology info in the Quran from the Greek text? I'm not sure. Hey brother, I'm a young man in Toronto, 23, and I study philosophy within the minor in business law. I've been reading the works of, okay, I don't know who that is, and the like, but whenever I am to pass these books along to my boys. I would never say that reading is a waste of time. Reading opens your mind. You should always be reading. I was speaking to a nurse recently, and we was talking about people who go into dementia. And one of the ways you help old people to stay alert, is to have them keep reading, keep doing math problems. So reading is never, and deluding yourself, only people who want to stay stuck delude themselves and will want somebody else to stay with them. Stay with them in their ignorance. So never stop reading, never stop thinking, never stop putting pieces of the puzzle together either. Yeah, Josephus went where the money and the power was, exactly, because he was about to die. That dude didn't want to die. I mean, he tricked his people into thinking that, they made a blood pact to kill each other, kill themselves and not be taken as captives, but he tricked all them jokers so that he survived. At what point did they decide to compile the Bible? The compilation of the Bible came over a time frame. You have to start, actually, Marcion started compiling the Bible, but really you had 39 years of Athanasius writing what he thought the canon should be. And it took about another 700 years for them to canonize the Bible, from about 325 to 700, 800 time frame. How, if all, does... Well, Christus Serapis, that was when the Ptolemies, the Greeks, were in charge down in Egypt. And you had these teachings of Jesus, these teachings of Osiris, and Heru and Asar, and you had all these teachings in Egypt. And what the Greeks like to do is compile things together, and so that everybody gets along. And so they created Serapis, based on Ptolemy, Jesus, and Heru. And of course, that teachings of that Serapis, since Alexandria was a huge focal point in Christianity by the time you get to the Council of Nicaea. And I did a video about what really happened at the Council of Nicaea. So go check that out. But since Serapis was a huge influence down in Egypt at that time frame, and people, they did their Christian thing, but they did the Serapis thing. They did their Christian thing, but they did the, which I'm gonna do a video about the reason for the season. They did their, the winter solstice thing. They did all that kind of stuff combined together. Then I forget which bishop in Alexandria was like, look, we got to merge all this stuff together. So Serapis got absorbed into Christianity because, like, I want to say Irenaeus, but I don't think it was Irenaeus. I think it was Alexander of Alexandria. But they was like, we got to merge all this stuff together in order to do it. So you got that kind of, and that's why I mean by it's so adaptive. Religions are always adaptive, and the Greeks were like masterful at adapting your religion to theirs, and just melding it together so that people, because in their mind frame, if we say that our religions are the same, if I got Zeus and you got this dude, then they the same thing. So we can talk to each other, The Romans had a problem because the Romans said, we don't mind you having yours, but we need you to worship Caesar as well. And that's why they had so many problems with the Jews, because of that. But religions and cultures have always continued to adapt. That's why no religion today looks exactly the same way it did 500 years ago. There's no way. Look at Christianity 500 years ago. You'll see people in the church and they dancing and jumping up and down and giving an undignified praise, right? That's what they say. 500 years ago, if you was in church doing an undignified praise, they would say that you had demons in you and you need to be exorcised. If you was during one of the Inquisition time frames, they might have tied a rock around your leg and threw you into the water and said that if you rise up from the water, then you're a witch. But if you stay sunken and die, then you're not a witch and you weren't possessed and you've been exorcised. Either way, you're dying. What they should have been saying, I mean, if I'm standing in that group, I think I would have been like, wait, that don't sound right. Maybe if they sink and they rise up, maybe God is allowing them to rise up. And maybe they're not a witch, but if they stay down there and die, then God is saying that's right, they're a witch and they should be dead. But the way Christians worship today, they would all be considered heretics 500 years ago. So religion changed based on the culture. The culture don't change, the religion don't change the culture changes the religion, right? So when we look at all these things, they always are changing. Have you ever read Stolen Legacy by, no, I have not. Touches on the Greeks. Yeah. You gotta understand, a lot of my understanding before a lot of these authors, I've been doing this since I was 9 and I'm 47 years old. I used to send off information to the Library of Congress to get information from them. So a lot of the stuff wasn't book, so I would read like anthropological journals and different journals from other, just other organizations. When Rome conquered, it was more to, they would merge them, and the Romans got that from the Greeks. Like I said, the problem they had with the Jews is that they said that put a statue of Caesar in your synagogues and then once a year give praise to it, but the Jews wouldn't do it. So that's why the Jewish revolts became such a huge problem, which is why they got rid of Nero, which is why Vespasian was able to step in, because he had defeated the Druids by defeating their story. So his was, let me defeat the Jews by defeating their story, by go ahead and creating their Messiah and making a docile version. But of course it didn't work, because you still had revolts that continued on, which created a lot of anti-Semitic sentiment throughout the Roman Empire, which is why the doctrine went into the Jews killed Jesus, which that doctrine really didn't alleviate itself until like around the 1940s and 50s. And that doctrine was still very prevalent. How did Zeus, who orchestrated it? I don't know. I just know it happens. I mean, when you go and really look at the Council of Nicaea and everything that happened after that, all these other deities got changed and merged into the universal church, the Catholic Church. Catholic means universal. So who literally transferred Zeus into the deists? I don't know who literally did it, but I know it's a part of an orchestration. I mean, you think about it, from 325 of Constantine up to 492 of Theodosius, you got this whole, that's when the Orthodox took over. That's what we was talking about Marcion, and Marcion was, his teaching itself was larger than the Orthodox teaching of the day, but because the Orthodoxy were really small, and you had the Orthodox Christians were in both Maxentius' army as well as Constantine's army when they fought each other at the Moldovan Bridge. So they were aware of the Orthodox Christians, and they didn't mind the Orthodox Christian, because the Orthodox Christians said, "Pay your taxes, give unto Caesar what is Caesar," and all those sorts of things. It is the Gnostic Christians, like the Edomites and all these other different types of sects of Christianity that was more Gnostic views, that were like, no, government don't mean crap to us, that the Romans had problems with. So you had a time frame up to Theodosius when Theodosius was like, kill them all. But there was a lot of, the Orthodox was growing in power after Rome made it an official religion first, and then made it the religion. And over the centuries, everything starts changing and getting merged, and so yeah. And this is why it is important to go and read about people like Origen and Athanasius and Marcion and Eusebius of Caesarea. It's important to go and read about those people, and read what they were writing during those time frames, so that you have a better understanding of where this crap comes from. Where does, how these changes came about. We can read things today. I mean, think about it. You can read, if you go back and read a Christian author, a Christian scholar 100 years ago, they don't sound like Christian scholars today. The message is different. I mean, think about it. I'm a black guy, right? According to most people, right? I'm melanated. What year are we in? 2018? What? A little over 150 years ago, it was taught that I didn't have a soul, that people like me don't have souls. So that justified slavery. And that was Christian thinking, Christian teachings. Black people don't have souls. So that's why you can beat them, you can whip them, you can do all these things. The Mormon teaching that black people can only be servants to white people in heaven if they go through a process didn't change until the 1970s. And the only reason it changed is because Jimmy Carter threatened to take away their 501c3. So that teaching in the Mormon church didn't change until the 1970s. There are a lot of scholars that don't recognize the Zoroastrians. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about the Zoroastrians in a long time. Do you think that they played a big role in today's religion, i.e. Judaism? Sorry for the digression. No, actually I haven't talked about the Zoroastrians in a very, very, very long time. Oh, good morning, Queen T, how you doing? Or afternoon. The Zoroastrians, I remember researching the Zoroastrians and thinking that back in the 90s, it was taught that the Zoroastrians, the early 90s, that the Zoroastrians were the first monotheistic group, monotheistic teaching. And so, of course, a lot of the thought process was that the Jewish cults took from the Zoroastrian teachings of a one God, a Zoroaster, being that one primary God. And then, if I'm getting that right, I think I'm getting that right. But then later discoveries also showed that Zoroastrian teaching was present in Canaan when the Jewish sect started separating Baal to El. But it also then later discovery showed the Sumerian teachings of how that incorporated that and started Enlil declaring himself the one true God to Abraham. But even before, and then in the late 90s, the more deeper discoveries of Akhenaten showed where Akhenaten started teaching that there is but one God who is represented by the sun, the Aten, which he moved the capital to Aten. So what we what we can surmise is that throughout history, there have been time frames in pretty much most cultures where it has went to one supreme God or just one God, and then goes back into the monotheistic. Then goes back into a polytheistic thought process. But I do think because of the general area that the Zoroastrian teachings greatly affected the Hebrew message, the Israelite message, right? As well as the Egyptians, Canaanites, Samaria, and everybody else. Because you gotta think, these people came out of the Canaanites. They came out of the Canaanites, which the Canaanites came out of Egypt, which they all came out of the Absolute, right? So they're going to have, as they move about the planet, they start developing different teachings. As different leaders come up, they have different teachings. If I was able to go back in time, I'd be tricking people like, oh, I'm gonna make the sun come up tomorrow. What I need you to bring me 3 chickens, 5 pieces of bread, and I need you to give me some money, some silver, some gold, and if you bring that to me, because at night the wolves come out, that big animals come out. But if I'm gonna bring that sun up for you tomorrow, I'm gonna bring that sun up for you tomorrow. And then, I can trick them into the seasons and everything, how the seasons work, the whole deal. So if you give somebody with more knowledge, they can easily move people, right? They can move the masses. So that's why we have to get educated. That's why the Gnostic view had to be questioned. Because the Gnostic view said knowledge. We gotta get knowledge. We have to get a knowing. Even the agnostics has changed their meaning today, but agnostic used to mean that I ain't saying that y'all ain't right, that y'all wrong, but I ain't saying y'all right, and I'm not saying they wrong, but I ain't saying they right. I'm saying we all kind of got a little something going on, but we got to look inside to kind of figure it out. Religion, with all the different beliefs, all comes down to who will control who. Beautifully said. You're absolutely right. It does come down to who controls who. I think it was either Napoleon or Hitler. One of them jokers said something to that, like religion is the opioid of the masses, or religion is used to control people. I know that there's I don't know if it's a Tao saying or a Buddhist saying, or it's somebody saying. Um, Before I say that, let me correct that. You said that's right, knowledge is power. I'm changing that thought process, and I want you to change it. Knowledge is only power when it's put into action. A lot of people are walking around with a lot of knowledge, but no action. So it's not power. For instance, if I were to tell you, if I were to tell you that if I were to tell you that you can go to my website, coachrenz.com, go to the life coaching page. There's a letter on there, a credit dispute letter. It'll get rid of 80% of the negative things on your credit. And once you do it, you get your 50, 100 points on your credit score. I just gave you that knowledge. Do you have power? No. Until you actually go download it, put all your information in there, use it correctly, and send it off, now you got power. Because now you just made yourself more credit worthy, right? Now you can finance that business or buy a home, put some investments in play. Now you can get a job because jobs are checking you for your credit and all that kind of stuff. So knowledge is power when you put it into practice, right? I can have all this. It's a seed, exactly. It's a seed of power. I like that. It's a seed of power. Now you got to water it. You got to put some fertilizer down on that thing. You got to keep the weeds away from it, right? And then you can grow that thing. So yeah, let's do that. And I'm only bringing that because you say you were young, and I love it when young people, I like working with them. I like working with my adults too, my bigger adults, my older adults. But right, so religion is used to dupe people, because like I was saying earlier, if you was here with me earlier, and I went way past how long I said I was going to be on here, but religion is used to keep the masses in line, right? If I can keep the masses thinking that life is going to get better by some miracle and not by them taking action, then I can control them, right? I can control what they do. I control how they live their life, right? Think about it. During the sub-Saharan slave trade, or during the conquest of the Arab nation over North Africa. When they encountered people who weren't believers in Islam, they held them at the sword point and said, convert or I'll kill your child. Convert or I'll kill your parent. And people converted, right? Now, once that parent converted, they have children. They teach their children because they're trying to keep their children safe. But their children grow up just knowing it. Now, once their children grow up just knowing it, then they teach their children. And their child just grow up knowing it. And that child teach that child. They just grow up knowing it. After a while, they forget that they originally came to this belief at the point of a sword. But now I can control you. Now I can teach you that women are subservient to men. Now I can teach you that if another person is not Muslim, I can charge them interest. I can teach you that if you're not another person not Muslim, I can tax the hell out of them. Now I can teach you that if another person refused to become Muslim, I can blow them up and chop off their head and all these other kind of things. Now I can teach you that, and you never question it because it's just what you've always been taught your whole life. Never realizing it came from the point of the sword, but now I control how you live, how you treat your women, how you treat your sons, how you treat your daughters, what you do. I'm controlling you to the point where I'm making you get down on your knees and face east to pray 5 times a day. I'm controlling you to the point where once a year, I get you to not eat for 30 days during the daylight hours. I'm controlling how you eat, what you can eat, what you can't eat. You know, I don't know if this is true, but I saw a meme where it was saying that pork in Islam, pork is considered foul, but camel urine is considered a medicine. You know, it's kind of nasty either way you look at it from my concern. But I don't know if that's true or not. So don't nobody in here talking, oh, he talking some crazy stuff. That's just a meme I saw. You know how memes are. You know, who knows? But those kind of teachings can go across. I can teach you that. I can change your economy. I can change the way you live. I can change the way you fight back. I can. Look at the civil rights movement. Look at the civil rights movement. Most organizations in the civil rights movement were docile and pacifist, right? Right? You can charge interest to somebody who's not Muslim. Just like Christianity teaches that you're not supposed to charge interest to another Christian. But go to a Christian bank. I guarantee they're going to charge you some interest. But that's why I say, but the civil rights movement is very, very passive for the most part. For the most part. Why was it passive? Christianity. Christianity made it passive. Christianity made it passive. Why was the Muslim movement more of, you attack me, I'm going to kill you? Because Islam is not as passive as Christianity is. Right? Just not. It's not that way. It's not that way. I think Gandhi was a Sufi Hindu. I'm not sure, which is why he would have been passive. But don't quote me on that one. I'm not sure about that one. But most of these movements that are passive is because of religion. And most that fight and revolt are that way because of religion. So control the people by their religion. But think about this. If people were truly controlled by it, the Bible tells people to do many businesses because you don't know which one will prosper. It also tells people to count twice, measure twice and cut once. So you should be cautious in your actions and what you do and how you spend your money. It tells the story of the talents, where you're supposed to, the one who is praised the most is the one who went out there and invested and made 2 times it, doubled his money, So where are all those things? Where are those teachings? Where are those things that people are following? They're not. But that's what we got to give people. Now, I originally said we was only going to talk for like 30 minutes. But here it is. It's 5:30. Almost 5:30 in the East Standard Time. And I got to go. That's Georgia talk. I got to get. But I've enjoyed you guys. I'm curious about this experiment of doing this video as a live. If you saw it in the early parts, I talked about the experiment of this. I'm going to throw up some other videos on here that I want you guys to go watch towards the end of this video. So go watch those. And I hope you enjoy those videos as well. It's been great doing lives. I'm going to do more just impromptu lives. But of course, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is a dedicated show. I don't know what the title for next week is going to be yet, because I don't know what other lives I'm going to do before I get to Tuesday. But I look forward to you guys being there on that one. And please go check out the tour, the Alchemy Tour of Life, on coachrenz.com/the store. Tell me what you think about the advertisement for it or the concept of it. Give me your ideas, your thoughts on it. Put it in the comments, because I'm really interested in what you guys think about it. Because we're going to build this temple of learning. Because we got to give people, we got to give them the fish, the boat, the car. We got to give them the worm. Got to give them everything they need to be successful in life, to be successful in their relationships, to have better health, to have a better life period, create heaven on earth. So I look forward to it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Remember, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is not negotiable.